I stood there like a damn idiot. Full gear, helmet under my arm, boots squeaking on the concrete, waiting for anyone to show up. The shop was dead silent except for the hum of the vending machine. Not a single bike rolling in. Not even a car in the lot. Just me and the empty garage. My name's Ryan. I'm 50 years old, and I've co-owned Ridge Rock Motors in El Paso for almost 17 years. Today was supposed to be my birthday ride. I'd sent out formal invites a month ago, custom patches, catering, the whole thing. 50 miles for 50 years, brotherhood ride. I dropped almost $5,000 prepping this. Everyone said they'd be there, or at least no one said they wouldn't. Not one can't make it. Not one sorry brother. Just silence. I walked into the lounge area. 7 coffee mugs lined up on the table. Each one had a name tag. I even made one for my stepson, Cody. I sat down in the leather chair by the coffee maker, still sweating through my jacket. The kid working Saturdays, Eli, peeked around the corner, awkward as hell. Happy birthday, Mr. R. Thanks. You want to wait inside? Yeah, they're just running late. He nodded like he believed me, but his eyes said otherwise. I stared at the door, waiting for that familiar sound. Boots on concrete, helmets clunking on the table, someone yelling, "Let's roll!" But nothing. An hour passed. Still no one. Then a white van pulled up. Not a bike. Courier. He handed me a sealed envelope marked, "Urgent." No return address. I tore it open. Inside, just a yellow post-it. Check the ledger. My stomach flipped. I pulled out my phone, opened the accounting app, and there it was, 6 missed calls from my accountant. The most recent was from this morning. I scrolled through the transaction history. My heart damn near stopped. Withdrawals. Dozens. Some small, some massive. One for $28,000 labeled, consulting fee. Another for $42,000 just marked, expenses. Over $300,000 gone. Then I looked at the ownership section. My name? Wiped clean. I stood up so fast I knocked over one of the mugs. Coffee splashed down the side of my boot. I didn't even flinch. Eli walked in again. "You okay, sir?" I looked at him, nodded once, then walked straight into the back office and locked the door behind me. I sat in the back office, lights off, door locked, phone still open to the ledger. Numbers staring back like they were laughing at me. But I wasn't surprised. Not really. 3 weeks ago, I'd already felt it coming. It started with a stack of contracts I found on the shop printer. They weren't anything I recognized. Some shell company crap with weird terms and no actual service tied to them. At the top, Darren's name. "Vendor forms," he said when I asked. Didn't even flinch. "New paint supplier I'm testing out. Better rates." I didn't buy it, but I let it go. We'd been through too much together, 2 deployments, 2 busted knees, and 17 years of building this place from a junkyard shack into something real. He always handled vendors. I trusted him. That night, my wife, Nicole, barely looked at me. No hug, no kiss, just hey. And then straight to the wine bottle. Sat on the couch, scrolling her phone like I wasn't even in the room. I chalked it up to work stress, or hormones, or whatever excuse I'd been using for the past year when she started pulling away. The next morning, I grabbed her coat from the laundry room to toss it in the car. Something fell out of the pocket. A folded napkin, lipstick smudged, with a short note scribbled on it. "Ride was incredible. Let's meet again Saturday. D. D." My gut clenched before my brain even caught up. D wasn't some random stranger. D was Darren. I didn't confront her. Didn't storm into his office and start swinging. I'm not a hothead. Not anymore. Instead, I went to the shop security feed. Pulled up the last week's logs. First, nothing. No images, no recordings, just gaps. The system hadn't been triggered. But the logs didn't lie. Office door opened twice after midnight. 2 different nights. Both when I was out of town doing a trade show in Phoenix. I started digging. Quietly. Went through our shared business email, invoices, vendor logs. At least a dozen flag transfers in the last 2 months. Payments going to a fake company. One created 6 weeks ago. Tied to a bank account in Houston. The withdrawals were all approved by Darren. My signature wasn't even forged, just left off entirely. I called the accountant, asked him, straight up, "Did you notice anything weird lately?" Silence. Then, "Yeah, I tried to reach you last week. Darren told me not to bother you. Said you were dealing with some family stuff." That's when the picture started forming. I checked our insurance policy, the one we signed 3 years ago when we expanded. Buried in the legal jargon was a clause I'd forgotten about. Something called a moral integrity trigger. If a business partner was found guilty of both financial fraud and personal misconduct, their shares were revoked. No payout, no negotiation. Their equity went straight to the remaining partner. It wasn't just about stealing. It was about breaking the damn code. So I made a call to our broker in Austin, asked him point blank, "If I can prove both, money theft and personal betrayal, does the clause still hold?" He didn't hesitate. "Absolutely, but you'll need documentation of both. Solid proof, paper trail, timestamps, everything." I hung up and stared at the wall for a long time. This wasn't just betrayal. It was a double hit. Darren took my business. Nicole took my home. And they didn't even try to hide it. But I didn't throw a fit. I didn't scream. I got to work. I started saving everything: screenshots, bank records, message logs, timestamps, every tiny piece. I even checked the shop fridge camera, the dumb one Darren always forgot existed. It had caught them once, sitting in the lounge, drinking beers, laughing at something on his phone. Not damning, but enough to connect dots. I didn't ask questions, didn't give them the chance to lie. I just kept building the file. Darren walked in one morning, slapped my shoulder like we were still boys in the barracks. "You heading out to the swap meet Saturday?" I looked him in the eye, smiled, thinking about it, because now I knew exactly what I was going to do. I just had to wait. I spent the next 4 days buried in screenshots, bank transfers, emails, messages. Darren had used the shop card for everything from hotel rooms to gift deliveries. One was a flower order with a note, "For the woman who rides harder than she works." Classy. I hired a freelance paralegal I found online, guy named Taylor from Houston who specialized in contract disputes and fraud reporting. I told him I needed the paperwork tight, quiet, and bulletproof. No lawyer letters, no noise. He didn't ask questions, just said, "Send me everything." So I did. Every document, every timestamp, every file name with dates and details. Taylor organized it into one clean packet. The formal claim for breach of contract and integrity violation. Once filed, Darren would be removed. No vote, no negotiation. Just gone. The day after I sent it all over, I ordered the patches. Took 2 weeks to make. Thick thread, sharp colors. A winged will over flames with the words stitched bold across the top. 50 miles for 50 years brotherhood ride. 12 patches total. 1 for me, 11 for the people who should have given a damn. I wrote out formal invitations. Real cards, matte black with silver lettering. Mailed one to Darren's house, even though I knew he wasn't living there anymore. 1 to Nicole. 1 to Cody, my stepson. A few to the other guys in our regular ride group, Mason, Ricky, Tom. No one replied. Not a text. Not an RSVP. Not even a damn thumbs up. I didn't follow up. That silence was the whole point. The ride was set for my birthday, Sunday. I told Eli, our team mechanic, that I'd be gone for a few hours that morning and to keep the shop closed until noon. "You want me to come in later and help clean up?" he asked. "Nah," I said. "Shouldn't be much to clean." On Friday, Taylor emailed the final draft. All that was left was the timestamp. The insurance compliance officer confirmed it. The clause goes live at 8 a.m. sharp. As long as the evidence and witness records matched the date and time, the breach could be filed immediately. I added the final piece: business dissolution forms. One signature left, mine. After the breach, Darren's ownership would dissolve and transfer to me. By Saturday night, every document was printed, sealed, and sitting in a red folder in my desk drawer. I stood over the shop floor, lights off, staring at the patches laid out across the counter. Each one looked better than the last. But I wasn't proud. I wasn't excited. I was just done pretending this ride was for fun. This was for proof. At 6:45 a.m. Sunday, I was already suited up. Leather jacket zipped, gloves on, helmet hanging off my arm. I stood in the parking lot waiting. Just me and the wind. 7 o'clock. Empty. 7:30. Still nothing. By 7:45, I didn't need to check the clock anymore. The lot was silent, and I was staring at a row of empty parking spaces that told me everything I needed to know. I walked back inside, took one slow lap through the garage, and stepped into the office. Opened the red folder. Scanned the time. 8:02 a.m. I clicked send on the breach claim. Then I signed the dissolution form. Ownership, 100% Ryan. No applause. No cake. Just the quiet click of a pen and a line drawn through 17 years of brotherhood. I stared at the ledger on my phone, still open from that morning, when it finally clicked. The courier envelope, the urgent label, the note, it wasn't from Darren or Nicole. It was from Taylor, the paralegal. I slid the post-it aside and unfolded the papers beneath it. Attached was a printed ledger. His handwriting scrawled across the top. Full proof attached. File ready to finalize once reviewed. I started scanning the transaction dates. They lined up exactly with the weekends I'd been gone, trade shows, supply runs, the Vegas parts auction. Every time I left town, money disappeared. Thousands at a time. The accountant hadn't just called to talk numbers. He'd been trying to warn me. My jaw clenched so tight it hurt. I swiped through my phone, opened the security feed app, and pulled up the remote camera access. The office feed loaded first. 2 nights ago. Timestamp 10:47 p.m. There they were, Darren and Nicole, sitting on the couch in the office I built. 2 beers in hand. Music low, laughing like they didn't have a care in the world. She had her feet up on his lap. He leaned in close, said something that made her toss her head back and laugh. That sound, her laugh, used to mean something. Now it just echoed in my chest like a nail gun. Eli's voice broke through the silence. Mr. R? I turned. He stood in the doorway, phone in hand, face pale. Darren just called, he said. He wants to talk it out. Said it's all a misunderstanding. I let out a breath that wasn't quite a laugh. Did he now? Eli nodded. Said he's on his way here. Should I? I cut him off. Lock up. Head home. He hesitated like he wanted to say more, but I didn't give him the chance. I grabbed my helmet, the envelope, and my phone, then walked out into the parking lot. The sun was already dropping behind the buildings, throwing long shadows over the bikes lined up along the side. I didn't even look at them. I climbed into my truck, slammed the door, and just sat there, hands gripping the steering wheel. The whole place looked smaller from outside, like 17 years of work could shrink to nothing overnight. Then I started the engine. I didn't drive home. Didn't have one, really, not anymore. The house didn't feel like mine, and the garage sure as hell didn't either. I just drove. Highway, frontage roads didn't matter. I passed the same strip mall 3 times before realizing I wasn't headed anywhere specific. My phone lit up on the seat beside me. First call, Darren. Then another. Then Nicole. Then Cody. They just kept coming. One after another, their names flashing across the screen like ghosts trying to claw their way back in. I didn't answer. Not one. They could talk it out all they wanted, with each other. I was done being part of the conversation. By the time I made it back to the garage, it was close to 9. The sky had that deep orange burn fading into black, and the shop lights glared through the bay windows like floodlights at a crime scene. Every bike was parked outside in a crooked line. That alone told me something was wrong. I killed the engine, stepped out, and felt the heat roll off the pavement. My stomach was tight but steady. Whatever this was, I was ready for it. When I pushed open the door, all of them were already there. Nicole was standing near the office, arms folded, like she'd been pacing. Darren sat at the break table, elbows on his knees, face pale and slick with sweat. Cody leaned against the tool chest, jaw set but eyes darting like a kid caught between sides. 2 of our old riding buddies, Mason and Tom, hovered by the back wall, watching but not saying a damn word. Nicole was the first to move. "Ryan, please," she said, voice sharp with panic. "We need to talk before this gets worse." "Before this gets worse?" I shut the door behind me. "You mean before it gets real?" Darren stood up, but he didn't meet my eyes. "Let's not do this here, man. Not with them around." Too late. I dropped the folder I'd been holding onto the table. It hit hard enough to make Mason flinch. "You stole from the shop. And you screwed my wife. One's a betrayal. Both's a war." Darren's mouth twitched. He tried to keep his voice level. "I was desperate, okay? You were too busy to notice what this place was becoming. Bills piling up, customers backing out." I cut him off. "Don't twist this into a sob story. You didn't steal to save the shop. You stole to save yourself." Nicole stepped forward. "It wasn't about the money," she said quickly. "And it wasn't about love either. It just happened, Ryan. We didn't mean for it to." That one almost made me laugh. I looked at her, really looked, and for the first time I saw her for what she was. Not the woman I built a life with, just someone who'd already checked out. "You two turned my business and my marriage into your playground," I said. "And now you want sympathy?" Darren rubbed his face, pacing. "You don't get it. You checked out months ago. You barely talked to me, to any of us. I kept this place alive while you were off at trade shows pretending we were still partners." I took a step closer, voice low but steady. "You think lying, stealing, and screwing my wife counts as keeping it alive?" No one spoke. The silence stretched so long I could hear the hum of the vending machine in the back. I opened the folder, spread the papers across the table, transaction records, texts, photos. Nicole's lipstick-stained napkin. Darren's signature on falsified vendor forms. Screenshots from the shop cameras. "This," I said, tapping the documents, "is what you built while I was gone." Nicole's eyes filled, but I didn't care. She started to reach for the papers and I slid them away. "Don't bother. Insurance was notified 2 hours ago. Fraud plus misconduct. You're out. Legally. Permanently." Darren's head snapped up. "What?" I pointed to the final page, the integrity clause highlighted in yellow. "Read it. You lose everything. The shop, the accounts, your shares. All revert to me. You can fight it if you want, but it won't change the outcome." He looked stunned, like I'd sucker punched him. "You'll ruin me," he said quietly. I leaned forward until we were eye to eye. "You did that yourself." He shoved the chair back, breathing hard. "You think this makes you the good guy? You're not. You're just the last man standing." "Maybe," I said, "but I'm the one still standing." Nicole whispered his name, tried to reach for him, but he yanked his arm away. Cody muttered something under his breath and stormed out the side door. Mason followed, shaking his head. Tom stayed where he was, eyes on the floor. I gathered the papers, slid them back into the folder, and tucked it under my arm. "Keys to the shop," I said. Darren stared at me, frozen. I stepped closer. "Now." He finally dug into his pocket and slapped them onto the table. The clang echoed through the whole garage. "Get out," I said. He hesitated, then walked toward the door. Nicole followed, crying softly, but I didn't watch them leave. I just waited until the door shut, then reached over and killed the lights. The shop went dark except for the glow from the street lamp outside. For the first time in months, it actually felt quiet. I barely slept. I crashed on the cot in the back of the shop, still in my jeans, folder tucked under my arm like a shield. At 7:02 a.m., my phone buzzed. Email from Taylor. Subject line, "It's done." I opened it. The removal had been processed. Darren was officially out. 2 minutes later, the bank app updated. My name back at the top. Account access restored. 0 pending withdrawals. Balance cleared. Felt sterile, like walking into a burned-out house and finding your name still on the mailbox. Insurance flagged the claim as active. Investigation pending. Payout under review. But the clause had teeth. Darren couldn't touch a dime. Not anymore. By 8:30, the text started. "Nicole, we need to talk." Don't do this to me. Please. We can fix it. You're destroying everything. I stared at the screen. Didn't even blink. Then I typed back. You already did. Her brother called. Didn't answer. Then her mom. Voicemail full of guilt and confusion. How could I throw everything away like this? I sent one message to all three of them. Ask her. I'm done explaining. That afternoon, I packed 2 duffel bags, drove back to the house, and walked in like I was kicking in a door. Nicole wasn't there. Just silence, stale air, and a stack of mail on the counter. I didn't touch anything but what was mine. Tools, paperwork, a couple photo albums. Mostly old stuff from before her. The ring I left on the nightstand, right where she could see it. Then I moved into the office at the shop. Set up the cot, a mini fridge, and an old coffee machine I pulled out of storage. Spent the next few days surrounded by carburetor parts, tax forms, and an old dusty speaker playing classic rock low enough not to echo. It wasn't comfortable, but it was mine. At some point during the week, I stepped out of the family group chat. Didn't announce it, just left. Next morning, Cody texted. Guess we're not family anymore. I stared at that one a while. Could have ignored it. Could have typed a paragraph. Instead, I just replied, family doesn't steal. He didn't text again. That night, I sat out in the bay with a gas station burger and a beer I didn't even want. The lights were off, bay door cracked open. The smell of motor oil and rubber thick in the air. My phone sat face down on the table. For the first time in weeks, it stayed quiet. I leaned back in the metal chair, stared at the ceiling, and said out loud, it's over. Didn't feel like a win. Didn't feel like closure either. But it was something. Next morning, just after I finished tightening the chain on a Kawasaki rebuild, I heard the front door chime. I didn't bother looking up. I figured it was another vendor I forgot to cancel. Ryan. I glanced over. Mason. Ball cap low, hands in his pockets, face tight with something between guilt and shame. I didn't say a word, just kept working the wrench. He stepped closer. I didn't know, man. I swear. I thought it was just a dumb fling. I didn't know it was her. I dropped the wrench in the tray. Still came to the shop that night instead of the ride. He looked at the floor. Yeah, I was wrong. He scratched his chin, voice low. You didn't deserve that. I gave a half shrug. Didn't have much more to say. I came to help, he added. Not just to say sorry. I'll do whatever you need. You need hands, parts, rides covered. I'm in. We rebuild this place, your rep, whatever it takes. That made me pause. He wasn't the type to throw out offers unless he meant them. And I could see it. Etched across his face, in the way he didn't try to make excuses. I nodded once. All right. He let out a breath and stepped back like the weight on his shoulders had dropped by half. Later that week, I was cleaning out a shelf of old carb kits when I heard a knock on the garage door. Not the main bay, the side service door. I opened it to find a guy in a flannel shirt, gray at the temples, work boots still caked in dust. Looked familiar. I'm Eli's dad, he said. I stepped aside to let him in. He walked slow, hands in his jacket pockets, eyes scanning the shop like it was some kind of museum. He told me everything, he said finally. Said you handled it better than most would've. I leaned back against the counter. Didn't feel like I handled anything. He smiled a little, pulled a cold beer out of his coat. You want one? Hell yes. We cracked them open and sat on 2 overturned buckets near the front bay. Garage mostly dark except for the one shop light still buzzing above us. You hiring full-time? He asked. I was thinking about it. You should. Kid talks about this place more than he talks about his girlfriend. I laughed, for real this time. Figured he didn't have one. He doesn't. But he lies about it like a pro. We sat there for a while, sipping cold beer and listening to the soft hum of the building. Pipes creaking, distant tires on asphalt, tools clinking from the shelf behind us. For the first time in weeks, I didn't feel like I was dragging dead weight. I felt like me again. A week later, I pulled into the driveway and saw her car was finally gone. Nicole was officially moved out. She didn't leave a note. Just 2 cardboard boxes stacked neat in the corner of the living room. One said sorry. The other said memories. I didn't open either. Just carried them straight to the bed of my truck and dropped them off at the nearest donation center. Didn't even get a receipt. By the time I got back to the garage, the lawyer had emailed over the final paperwork. Her name removed from the business registry. Divorce process in motion. Nothing left to talk about. Darren tried once to negotiate a buyout. Emailed me like we were still business partners. Let's be reasonable, he wrote. We both built this place. I didn't reply. 2 days later, the motorcycle club held a vote. Took all of 6 minutes to strip him of membership. Mason called me right after. It's done, he said. He's out. Good, I said. Let's keep it that way. After that, I threw myself into the garage. Every morning, I opened the doors by 8, scrubbed every inch of the floor, tossed the couches, repainted the walls, ripped down all the old signs and hung new ones, got the windows tinted and installed a new security system. By the 3rd week, the rebrand was ready. Rider's Honor. Simple. Clean. Me. I launched the new logo with no fanfare, just swapped it out online, updated the uniforms and moved forward. No explanations. No speeches. Just business. Cody never called again. Not even a text. And honestly, I was okay with that. Eli showed up every day after school, asking questions, double-checking every task like it mattered. He worked weekends without me asking. Started fixing things before I noticed they were broken. I pulled him into the office one Friday afternoon. You want full-time once you graduate? I asked. He blinked, like he thought I was joking. For real? Yeah. You've earned it. His face lit up like I'd handed him the keys to the whole shop. Hell yes. I handed him a raised slip and his own set of keys. Don't lose them. Next time you do an oil change, it's under your name. That night, I stood in the bay with fresh paint on the walls, the new sign hanging above the workbench, and the smell of grease and metal right where it belonged. It wasn't perfect, but it was mine. 6 months later, I rolled out of the garage just before 5. Sunset ride. No patches. No banners. No damn expectations. Just me, Mason, Eli, and 2 newer guys we picked up from a weekend swap meet. Good riders. Quiet, respectful. Didn't ask questions. We tore through the canyon roads like we'd been doing it for years. Tires humming on hot pavement. Wind slapping our jackets. The sky bleeding orange behind the ridgeline. No one said much over the headsets. Just the occasional tight left or watch the drop. That was enough. We pulled off at a lookout point around dusk. Dust kicked up behind our boots as we parked. I popped the saddlebag and tossed everyone a cold soda. Mason cracked his open, took a long swig, then looked out over the valley. Feels different now. I nodded. Yeah, feels clean. I pulled out a photo from my jacket pocket. It was a little creased from the ride. Me and Claire, my daughter from a previous marriage, standing out front of the shop. She had her boots on the bumper of my truck, grinning like she used to when she was 5. She flew out for my birthday this time, I said, holding it up. Just her and me. No drama. Just laughs. Mason looked over, grinned. Good for you, man. Eli leaned on the guardrail, sipping slow. You ever talk to your ex? Nope. What about Darren? I twisted the cap back onto my bottle. Don't need to. The wind picked up a little, carrying that desert smell. Dry brush, dust, heat off the rocks. Nobody said anything else. We rode home in the dark. Later that night, I sat in the empty garage, boots off, music playing low through the shop speakers. Some old blues track rolling soft through the concrete. Tools hung clean on the pegboard. Floor spotless. Bank accounts balanced. I shut off the lights, leaned back in the office chair, and closed my eyes. This time I picked me, and it was the best ride of my life.